I always felt my husband was forced to marry me. Every time we were intimate, Parker only used his hands. Eventually, I gave up and decided to set him free. But the night before printing the divorce papers, I overheard him with his friends. "Why not touch your wife? She's right there." One said, "Nora might run off if you keep holding back." Parker sipped his whiskey. "You don't understand. She's delicate. What if I scare her?" His voice deepened. "She's my wife. Must cherish her. If she finds what I can't give elsewhere, fine. As long as she comes home to me." His friends laughed. Then, why secretly Google everything? That night, I checked Parker's history. 99 searches. All variations of "I finally married the girl I love. But I have a kink. How do I not scare her away?" The day Parker came back from his business trip, I had a battle plan. I showered, shaved, put on a full face of makeup before slipping into the new, sinfully sheer nightgown I bought. Then I slid into his side of the bed, waiting to be conquered. But when he walked out of the bathroom, the sight of me and his sheets made him freeze. The towel in his hand stilled. "Mid-rub, what are you doing here?" There wasn't a trace of warmth in his voice. My eyes roamed over him from top to bottom. Parker's body was a work of art. Even the plush bathrobe couldn't hide the swell of his pectoral muscles, or the faint outline of his ABS. Logically, with a nose that sharp and fingers that long, he had to be well-equipped. And yet, in 6 months of marriage, I had never been allowed to get a deeper understanding. Refusing to be deterred, I decided to be direct. "I'm here to sleep with you." I didn't care what excuses he came up with. Tonight, he was mine. Parker's expression flickered. His gaze dropped to my lingerie, and after a long pause, he gave a clipped fine. "That easy?" I was in disbelief. As he approached the bed, I felt a wave of uncertainty. Only light came from the small, mood-setting lamp on the nightstand. He lay down beside me, a wave of cool air and the clean scent of soap washing over me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I boldly wrapped my arms around his waist. Parker's entire body went rigid. A beat later, his head turned, his eyes finding mine. In the dim light, his voice was a low rasp. "Want me to help you?" Before I could answer, he pulled away, his movement swift as he opened the nightstand drawer. The little spark of excitement inside me was instantly doused by the practiced ease of his actions. I didn't even need to ask. I knew what was coming next. He was going to fulfill his husbandly duties, just not with himself. A white-hot spike of anger shot through me. It was always like this. His own body was under lock and key, untouchable, even when he was clearly aroused. He pulled out the finger cuts. My face darkened. I snatched them from his hand and threw them at his chest. "Help me. With what? You're so damn vanilla. What new tricks could you possibly have?" My voice was sharp, brittle with frustration. The lamplight was too faint for me to see his expression clearly, but I could feel his dark eyes fixed on me, the intensity of his gaze like a physical touch. It was hot and maybe, just maybe, laced with confusion. All the pent-up disappointment surged to the surface. "Parker, if you can't get it up, just say so. It's not like you're the only man on the planet. I can find someone else anytime. We were married, for God's sake. Why did every encounter have to feel like he was doing me a reluctant favor?" "That's not what I meant," he said, his voice strained, but still he made no move. Not even to cut my face for a kiss. Anything would have been better than this cold distance. This was the third time. The third time I'd laid myself bare only to be rejected. The disappointment was a crushing weight. I grabbed the robe I just discarded and stood up. Then I stormed out, slamming the door with a thunderous crack that echoed the shattering of my patience. I ended up at my best friend Cassie's apartment. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the coffee table. "Not gonna get that?" Cassie asked, tilting her head. I threw back a shot of tequila, the burn in my throat a welcome distraction. With a sigh, I switched my phone off completely. "What kind of trashy cigarettes did you buy?" I grumbled, my voice already raspy. One puff in, my throat's wrecked. Cassie just laughed playfully, tapping the colorful pack in her hand. "They look pretty, don't they?" She held it up for me to see, with a few casual questions. She had the whole story out of me, not that I was trying to hide it. There was one question that had been eating me alive. "Cassie, why won't Parker touch me? Maybe he's not into women." I shook my head. Parker had a girlfriend in high school, and since then countless men and women had thrown themselves at him, only to be met with his signature ice-cold rejection. Then a thought sparked in my mind. My eyes narrowed. I bet he's saving himself for my perfect older sister, the one who ran off to Europe. I'd heard the rumors before, that Parker had always been in love with the gentle, quiet heiress of the Sinclair family. Now it was all clicking into place. This marriage I was just a stand-in. My sister was the one who was supposed to marry Parker. But she dumped him for her supposed soulmate, some artist she followed, to another continent. Parker, ever the perfect gentleman, had never denied me anything in our 6 months of marriage, except for that one crucial thing. And every time he used his hands on me, watching my pleasure with that detached, controlled expression, there was never any desire in his eyes. Looks like a spectator at his own life. Did he find me disgusting? The thought hit me like a physical blow, and the fragile dam holding back my hurt broke. I slammed my glass down on the table with a loud crack. That's it. I've decided. Cassie jumped. Decided what? I'm divorcing him. A man who was all looks and no action was useless. No matter how handsome. Especially one who was still hung up on someone else. I was Norris Sinclair. I didn't need him. Okay. Easy there. No more drinking, Cassie said, clearly thinking I was just drunk and emotional. She dragged me off to take a shower. She'd just gotten a fresh manicure, and being a restless sleeper, she left a few angry red scratches on my neck. By morning, the moment I turned my phone on, it exploded with notifications, all from Parker. When I got back to our villa, I was surprised to find him home. The air was thick with the smell of stale smoke, the ashtray on the coffee table overflowing with cigarette butts. He looked up, his sharp features cutting a striking figure even in the morning light. You're back. His voice was a gravelly whisper. Then his eyes landed on the marks on my neck, and his pupils contracted violently. The light in his gaze instantly went out, replaced by a chilling darkness. I hadn't slept well, and the combination of smoke and alcohol had left my throat raw. I was in no mood for a dramatic confrontation. Just as he was about to speak, I raised a hand, my voice raspy. I'm exhausted from last night. I'm going upstairs. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was just done. I was really going to divorce him. A marriage without passion is a marriage without happiness. But as fate would have it, I came down with a fever that night. My body felt like it was filled with lead, my head swimming in a thick fog. The door creaked open. Parker had just showered, and the crisp scent of mint from his body wash was so strong, it almost made me gag. I wrinkled my nose and tried to push him away. Leave me alone. His body tensed. Who should take care of you? His voice was deep, laced with a carefully restrained emotion. He was trying desperately to be gentle. Come on. Be good. Take the medicine and you'll feel better. His cool fingertips brushed against my lips, and I saw his hand resting on his thigh, clenched into a tight fist. His gaze lingered on my mouth, his breathing growing heavier. I was completely oblivious. Being held by him felt uncomfortable, and I twisted away, trying to lie back down. Okay, you can go now. As I drifted in and out of consciousness, I thought I heard the sound of the shower running in the bathroom. It seemed Parker was taking another shower. When I woke up again, I was wrapped tightly in Parker's arms. Distinct feeling of something hard and hot pressed against my leg was impossible to ignore. His warm breath ghosted across my ear as he stirred, his hand coming up to feel my forehead. Still a little warm. The fever hasn't completely broken yet. I was wide awake now. It's not the fever making me hot. You idiot. I tried to elbow him away, but he expertly caught me by the waist. His callous thumb brushed lightly against my skin, sending a jolt of electricity through me. A small gasp escaped my lips. Nora Parker's voice was a low, husky whisper, carrying a magnetic pull that was hard to resist. Should we try on? Any other day I would have jumped at the chance, but after the last few days a wall had gone up between us. To me this felt like a slap followed by a piece of candy, a pathetic offering. Still weak from the fever, my body ached. Turn my face away, my voice cold. I can't. I'm too tired. The man behind me went utterly still. I could feel the tremor in his breath. As the life seemed to drain out of him, with a visible effort, Parker pulled back, creating a small distance between us. He said nothing. When I finally turned to look at him, his eyes were dark pools of sorrow, a bitter smile twisting his lips. It's my fault. I don't blame you. I let out a cold snort. At least he had some self-awareness. But please, he continued, his voice barely a whisper. Don't push yourself so hard next time. It's not good for your body to get a fever like that. Parker lowered his gaze, hiding whatever raw emotion was swirling within him. Before I could process his words, he stood up and went to the closet to get clothes for me. He usually wore silk pajamas, but for once he was wearing only a towel, wrapped low on his hips. Sculpted lines of his muscles and the tantalizing V of his torso were on full display. My eyes traced the firm curve of his waist and the tight clench of his glutes, and my heart gave a little flutter, but that was all. Any handsome man standing in front of me would have had the same effect. Parker handed me the clothes without a second thought. I started changing right in front of him. As expected, he immediately turned away, his eyes fixed firmly on the wall. What I didn't know was that the moment I left the room, Parker walked straight back into my bathroom. A few days later, I started noticing some of my clothes were missing. At first I didn't think much of it. They weren't expensive pieces, and I had plenty of others. But then the lace lingerie set Cassie had bought me last week vanished. I couldn't figure it out. We didn't have cameras in the house, so there was no way to identify the pervert. Finally, over dinner one evening, I brought it up with Parker. I think we have a thief. He was calmly sitting at the table, spreading butter on a piece of my toast. He paused for a fraction of a second at my words. Without looking up, he asked, his voice steady, "What's missing?" "Lingerie." I said it nonchalantly, but his reaction was anything but. The butter knife slipped, smearing a dollop of yellow across the small mole on the back of his hand. My eyes narrowed, watching his uncharacteristic clumsiness. "Why so nervous? Did you take it?" Parker was silent for a few seconds before letting out a soft, humorless laugh. His long, dark eyes met mine. "What do you think?" "What do you think?" I repeated, leaning forward. The air in the dining room grew heavy, charged with a static electricity that made the hair on my arms stand up. Parker carefully wiped the butter from his hand with a napkin. He did it with slow, maddening precision, buying himself time. When he finally looked up, the mask was back in place, cool, detached, indifferent. "I think you're imagining things, Nora," he said smoothly. "Perhaps you misplaced them. Or perhaps the maid service made an error. The maid service didn't take a specific black lace set and leave the cotton briefs, Parker. And they certainly didn't take the slip I wore the night I had the fever." I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the floor. "And I don't believe you." Parker took a sip of his wine, but I saw the way his Adam's apple bobbed. "Believe what you want. I will." I turned on my heel and headed not for the stairs, but for the one room in the house I was tacitly forbidden from entering, his private study. "Nora," his voice cracked behind me. The cool indifference shattered instantly. "Don't go in there." I didn't listen. I reached the heavy oak double doors and threw them open. The room smelled of him. Cedar, old paper, and that crisp mint scent. It was impeccably organized, a fortress of solitude. But my eyes went straight to the bottom drawer of his massive mahogany desk, the one he always locked the moment I entered the room. I heard his heavy footsteps sprinting down the hallway behind me. I yanked the handle. Locked. "Nora, stop." Parker burst into the room, his chest heaving. He looked terrified. Not angry, terrified. "Open it," I demanded, my hand still on the brass handle. "If you didn't take them, open it." "You don't want to see what's in there," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "My own underwear." I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. "I'm divorcing you, Parker. I'm done with the secrets. I'm done with the coldness. So either you show me who you really are or I walk out that front door tonight and I never come back." He froze. The word divorce hung in the air like a guillotine blade. He stared at me, his dark eyes searching my face, looking for the bluff. He found none. Slowly, defeatedly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. He tossed it onto the desk. It slid across the wood with a metallic hiss. "Fine," he whispered. "But don't say I didn't warn you." I snatched the key, my hands trembling, and unlocked the drawer. I expected to find the lingerie. And I did. The black lace set was there, neatly folded. But it wasn't just the clothes. There was a photo album. Not a digital one, but a physical, leather-bound book. I opened it. My breath hitched. They were photos of me. Hundreds of them. Me at the university library 3 years ago. Me laughing at a coffee shop. Me walking in the rain. These weren't creepy stalker photos taken from bushes. They were candid shots taken from a distance, but with a reverence that was undeniable. And under the pile of photos were sketches. Charcoal drawings of my face, my hands, my sleeping form. And deeper in the drawer, velvet cuffs. A silk blindfold. A gag. I stared at the items, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This wasn't the stash of a man who was indifferent. This was the shrine of a man who was obsessed. "I've wanted you for 5 years." Parker's voice came from behind me, hoarse and broken. I turned around. He was leaning against the doorframe, his head in his hands. "I watched you from afar," he confessed, refusing to look at me. "I knew I was too much. My appetites. My jealousy. I knew if I touched you, I wouldn't be able to stop. You were so bright, Nora. So happy. And I'm..." He gestured vaguely at himself. "I'm a distinct shade of dark." "So, you treated me like a roommate?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You rejected me to protect me?" He looked up, his eyes blazing with a sudden, terrifying intensity. "Because if I started, I would consume you. And then I saw those marks on your neck." His face twisted in pain. "I saw the scratches." The hickeys. I thought. I thought you found someone normal. Someone who could love you gently, the way you deserve. I was ready to let you go. I was going to sign the papers. I stared at him, the pieces finally clicking together. The Google searches. How not to scare her. She's delicate. The missing clothes. The coldness. He wasn't saving himself for my sister. He was starving himself for me. Parker, I said, my voice steady. Come here. No, he rasped. You've seen the drawer. You see the cuffs. You know what I am now. Run, Nora. Go find a nice man. The marks on my neck, I said clearly. He flinched. They're from Cassie. We got drunk. She has sharp acrylic nails, and she's a restless sleeper. We shared a bed. Nothing happened. Parker went still. The silence stretched, tight as a bowstring. Cassie, he whispered. Cassie. I confirmed. I haven't been with anyone else. I only wanted you, even when you were being an absolute idiot. The transformation was instantaneous. The defeated posture vanished. He pushed off the doorframe, and the air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The predator I had glimpsed in the morning light, the man with the sharp jaw and the muscular build, finally stepped into the light.
He walked toward me.
He didn't rush.
He stalked.
You didn't cheat? He asked, his voice dropping an octave into a growl that vibrated through the floorboards.
No.
And you saw the drawer?
Yes.
And you're not running? I looked down at the velvet cuffs in the open drawer, then back up at him. I took a step toward him. I'm not running, Parker. I'm bored of vanilla. I told you that.
He stopped inches from me.
He was so tall, towering over me, blocking out the light. He reached out, his long fingers wrapping around my throat, not to choke, but to claim. His thumb traced the pulse hammering frantically in my neck. Be very careful, Nora, he murmured, his eyes tracking the movement of my lips. The gentleman is gone. If you stay in this room, you don't get to ask him to come back. I grabbed his tie and yanked him down. About damn time.
Parker didn't kiss me.
He devoured me. There was no hesitation, no tentative testing of the waters. He crushed his mouth to mine, his tongue sweeping into my mouth with a dominance that made my knees weak. He tasted of whiskey and repressed hunger, a starvation that had lasted 6 months. He swept everything off the desk with one violent shove of his arm. Papers, lamps, and pens crashed to the floor. He didn't even blink. He lifted me by the waist as if I weighed nothing and set me onto the mahogany surface. I tried to be good. He growled against my neck, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin there, making me gasp. I Googled. I researched. I tried to be the husband from the romance movies. Gentle. Sweet. He ripped the front of my blouse open. Buttons scattered across the room. I hated every second of it. I hated it too. I panted, wrapping my legs around his waist. The friction of his suit trousers against my thighs was electric. I wanted this. He pulled back, his eyes black with lust. You have no idea what this is. He reached into the drawer behind me without looking and pulled out the silk blindfold. Turn around. It wasn't a request. My heart hammered, a mix of adrenaline and arousal flooding my veins. I turned, placing my hands on the cool wood of the desk. He tied the blindfold over my eyes. The world went dark, heightening every other sense. I heard the zipper of his trousers. I felt the heat of his large body pressing against my back. You're mine, Nora, he whispered in my ear, his voice rough. You were mine when I watched you in the library. You were mine when you walked down the aisle. And you are certainly mine now. He didn't use his hands this time. When he finally entered me, it wasn't with the polite, shallow thrusts of the past. He filled me completely, stretching me, claiming me in a way that made me cry out. It was overwhelming, intense, and absolutely perfect. Parker, I sobbed, clutching the edge of the desk. Say it, he commanded, his hand gripping my hip, holding me in place for his rhythm. Tell me who you belong to. You, I gasped. I belong to you. He didn't let up. He drove into me with a relentless pace, stripping away every layer of frustration, every misunderstanding, every ounce of distance that had stood between us. It wasn't just sex, it was an exorcism of the last 6 months. He bit my shoulder, marking me over the faded scratches Cassie had left. Let everyone know, he growled. Let them see. When the release finally came, it was explosive. I shattered in his arms, my vision filling with stars behind the silk blindfold. Parker followed me seconds later, a low, guttural groan tearing from his throat as he collapsed against my back, burying his face in my hair. We stayed like that for a long time, the only sound in the room our ragged breathing. Eventually, he untied the blindfold. I blinked, adjusting to the light. He turned me around and pulled his robe, which was hanging on the back of the door, around my shoulders. He looked at me, his face flushed, hair messy, looking more alive than I had ever seen him. He cupped my face, his thumbs wiping away a stray tear. Did I scare you? He asked, the old anxiety creeping back into his voice for a split second. I looked at the wreckage of the room. The scattered papers, the broken lamp, the open drawer of kinks. I smiled, pulling his face down to mine. Parker, I whispered. I'm not delicate. I'm a Sinclair. We don't break. He let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. A dark, possessive smile spread across his face.
Good.
Because we have a lot of lost time to make up for. The next morning, I woke up in our bed. My body ached in the most delicious way possible. Parker was already up, but this time, the side of the bed wasn't cold. There was a note on the pillow. Meeting with the board. Back for lunch.
Don't get dressed.
I smiled, stretching. But the smile faltered when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. Elena is back from Europe. Dinner at the estate tonight. Bring Parker.
Anna.
My perfect older sister. The heiress. The one the rumors said Parker truly loved. The insecurity I thought had been pounded out of me last night crept back in. Yes, the sex was amazing. Yes, he was obsessed with me. But was I just a substitute? A vessel for the obsession he couldn't exercise on the perfect sister? When Parker came home, he found me sitting on the edge of the bed, fully dressed in a stiff, formal dress. He stopped in the doorway, frowning. He looked devastatingly handsome in a navy suit, his tie loosened. He walked over and kissed me, a deep, possessive kiss, but I pulled away. What's wrong? He sensed the shift immediately. Elena is back, I said. We have dinner at my parents' house. Parker's expression didn't change. Okay. Do you want to go? Everyone says you loved her. I blurted out. That you wanted to marry her, but she ran off with the artist, so you settled for me.
Parker stared at me.
Then, to my shock, he started laughing. Elena, he choked out. Your sister Elena? The one who quotes poetry at breakfast and thinks holding hands is too public. She's perfect, I defended weakly. She's gentle, delicate, like you said, I was. Parker sat down beside me and took my hands. His face turned serious. Nora, listen to me. I never looked at Elena twice. She is boring. She is paint by numbers. He shook his head. You are the one sneaking vodka into the punch bowl at the gala. You are the one who debated the CEO of my rival company into the ground at the charity auction. You are vibrant. You are fire. But the rumors were started by your parents, he said bluntly. They wanted a union between our families. They pushed Elena. I told them no. I told them I wanted the younger daughter. They told me you were wild, unmanageable. I told them that was exactly the point. I stared at him. You chose me? I demanded you, he corrected. Why do you think the marriage happened so fast? I heard you were considering moving to New York. I panicked. I expedited the merger just to get the contract signed. He stood up and offered me his hand. Let's go to dinner. And let me show you exactly how much I don't care about your sister. The dinner was as suffocating as I remembered. My mother critiqued my hair. My father talked stocks. Elena sat across from me, looking ethereal and pale, talking about the light in Tuscany. Parker sat next to me. His hand rested on my thigh under the table, his thumb rubbing circles into my skin. It was a grounding weight. So, Parker, Elena said softly, batting her eyelashes. I heard you've been working hard. You look tense. Perhaps you need someone who understands the quieter arts to help you relax. It was a subtle dig, implying I was too loud, too much. Parker didn't even look up for mistake. I'm very relaxed, Elena. Nora has been taking excellent care of me. My mother chimed in. Well, Nora is always so energetic. We were worried she might be overwhelming you, Parker. You've always been such a gentleman. Parker dropped his fork. It clattered loudly against the fine china. He looked up, his eyes cold and sharp. With all due respect, he said, his voice silky but carrying a lethal edge. You don't know my wife. You see her as too much because you are all terrified of feeling anything real. Nora is the only person in this room with a pulse. The table went silent. And as for being a gentleman, Parker continued, his hand squeezing my thigh tightly. I am a gentleman in the boardroom. In my home, with my wife. I am whatever she needs me to be. And right now, she needs to leave this stifling dinner. He stood up, pulling me up with him. Parker, this is rude, my father sputtered. Send the bill for the dinner to my office, Parker said dismissively. Nora and I have plans. He marched me out of the mansion, past the stunned servants, and into the cool night air. You realize they're going to hate you forever. I laughed as we reached the car. I don't care, Parker growled, pushing me up against the side of his sleek black sedan. Let them hate me, as long as you love me. I do, I said, realizing it was true. I really do. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. Good, because I have 99 search history results to make up for, and we've only crossed off one. 6 months later. The divorce papers were long gone, burned in the fireplace on a cold Tuesday night. Life with Parker was intense. It wasn't the fairy tale I had expected. It was better. It was raw and honest. We fought, we made up, we broke things, we fixed them. I walked into his office at the headquarters, bypassing his assistant who knew better than to stop me. Parker was on a conference call. He looked up, his eyes lighting up the moment he saw me. He held up a finger to the people on the screen, muted the microphone, and swiveled his chair. "Trouble?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "I was thinking," I said, walking around his desk. "Remember how you said you were afraid of scaring me?" "I recall. I think I found something that might scare you." I dropped a small velvet bag on his desk. He opened it, raising an eyebrow at the contents. He looked up at me, his dark eyes filled with that familiar, consuming heat. "Challenge accepted, Mrs. Sinclair Blackwood." He ended the call without saying goodbye to the board members. I had spent months thinking my husband was forced to marry me, that he was cold, that he was indifferent. I had been so wrong. He wasn't cold. He was a volcano that had been waiting for the right moment to erupt. And I was the only one who could handle the fire. "Lock the door, Parker," I ordered.
He didn't need to be told twice.